First story, the last route. I have been a trucker for over 15 years, driving through countless highways, seeing places most people never hear of. Long nights, empty roads, and the occasional diner stop were my life. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened on that last route through West Virginia. It was a cold November night, and I was hauling a load of steel beams from Pittsburgh to Charleston. The road stretched endlessly ahead, dark and silent, except for the hum of my engine and the static on the radio. Somewhere past the small town of Ravenswood, the fog rolled in thick, swallowing the road and the trees along the edges. I had driven through fog before, but this was different. It clung to my windshield, heavy and almost alive, twisting into strange shapes in my headlights. Then I saw her, a woman, standing on the side of the road. She was wearing a tattered blue dress, barefoot, her long hair covering her face. Something in my gut told me to keep driving, but my hand was already on the brake. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there, waiting. I rolled down my window slightly. "You need a ride?" She nodded, her hair still covering her face. I hesitated, but reached over to unlock the door. She climbed in without a word, sitting stiffly in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. The air in the cab turned ice cold, and the faint scent of wet earth filled my nostrils. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. She finally turned her head toward me, and I swear to God, I stopped breathing. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken and black like two bottomless pits. Her lips barely moved as she whispered, "Home." I gripped the wheel tighter. "Where's home? Just keep driving." The way she said it made my skin crawl, but I did as she asked. The fog seemed to thicken around us, muffling the sound of my tires on the pavement. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The GPS flickered and shut off. The radio let out nothing but white noise. I glanced at my side mirror, and my heart nearly stopped. There was something else in the back of my truck. A shadow, shifting, moving. "Who's back there?" I asked, my voice shaking. She didn't answer. Instead, she started humming, a slow, eerie tune that made my hair stand on end. My hands were sweating, my pulse hammering in my ears. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded to a stop, and for the first time she moved, turning to face me fully. "You shouldn't have stopped." The cab lights flickered, and the air turned thick like syrup. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. My reflection in the mirror was wrong, distorted, twisted, smiling when I wasn't. The shadow in the back of the truck was no longer just a shadow. It was climbing forward. I don't remember screaming, but my throat burned. The last thing I saw before everything went black was her reaching toward me, her fingers stretching impossibly long. I woke up in my truck, parked on the side of the road, just outside Charleston. The fog was gone. The cab was empty. My hands were shaking as I checked the trailer. It was locked, sealed, exactly as it had been before. But when I checked the logbook, the time didn't make sense. What should have been a 4-hour drive had taken 12, and my radio, which had been playing static all night, suddenly crackled to life. A woman's voice whispered, "See you soon." I don't drive that route anymore. Second story. The Hollow Mile. I've been driving trucks for over 15 years, and I've seen my fair share of strange things on the road. But nothing comes close to what happened on Route 46 in the middle of Wyoming. I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe just to get it out of my head. It was past midnight when I pulled off at a rest stop. A single flickering streetlight, a couple of vending machines, and a bathroom that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 80s. The wind howled through the empty lot, and for a second, I considered pushing on to the next town. But my eyelids were getting heavy, and I knew I'd be a danger to myself if I didn't rest. I climbed into the sleeper cab, locked the doors, and shut my eyes. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes before a tapping sound woke me up. Not knocking, tapping, light, almost hesitant. I glanced at the side mirror. Nothing, just the endless stretch of dark highway and the empty rest stop. Then the tapping came again. I turned on the cab light, my heart pounding. There shouldn't be anyone out here. I grabbed my flashlight and cracked the window just a little. Who's there? No answer. I shut the window and checked my mirrors again. And that's when I saw it. A shadow standing just at the edge of the streetlight's glow. Too still. Too quiet. "Hey!" I shouted. "You need something?" No response. I watched for a moment, then decided I wasn't going to sit around and play games. I turned the key, fired up the engine, and shifted into gear. The moment my headlights hit the figure, my stomach dropped. It was a man, or at least it had been. His face was stretched, his mouth hanging open as if screaming, but there was no sound. His arms hung limp, unnaturally long, fingers twitching. Then, as I watched, he took a step forward, not walked, glided, like he was being pulled by invisible strings. I slammed on the gas. My truck roared to life, tires kicking up dust as I sped out of the lot. I checked the mirror once, just once, and saw him standing in the middle of the road, his head slowly turning to follow me. I drove for miles, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. But the worst part? The tapping came back. It was softer this time, more insistent. I reached for my phone, ready to call someone, anyone, but there was no signal. The GPS was frozen. The road ahead stretched on forever, and every mile looked exactly the same. I checked the odometer. 20 miles had passed, then 40, then 60. But the gas gauge hadn't moved. I was still on Route 46, but no towns, no exits, no landmarks had appeared. Just the road, the darkness, and the thing outside my truck. I don't know how long I drove. Hours, maybe days. My food ran out, my water, my will to fight. And then the tapping stopped. I checked the mirror. Nothing. The road stretched behind me, empty. And that's when I saw the sign ahead. "Welcome to Hollow Mile. Population 1. Dear viewers, before we start the next horror story, I want to say, if you wish, you can support this YouTube channel financially through the details on the screen or in the description below the video. Thank you for your attention. Third story. The last truck stop. I've been driving long haul for 15 years, seen a lot of strange things on the road, but nothing prepared me for what happened that night on Route 74. It was late, maybe 2 in the morning, when my rig started acting up. Dashboard lights flickering, engine sputtering like it was choking on something. I was somewhere in Ohio, about 40 miles past a town called Marietta, when I spotted a truck stop. No name, just a neon sign that buzzed and flickered. Open 24/7. Pulling in, I noticed something was off. The lot was full of trucks, but there weren't any people. No drivers stretching their legs, no one refueling. Just rows of parked rigs, silent as tombstones. Inside, the place was empty, except for the guy behind the counter. A pale, thin man with watery eyes. His name tag said Cliff, but it looked like someone had scratched over the letters, like they were trying to erase his name. "Trouble with your rig?" he asked, his voice flat. "Yeah," I said. "Think my alternator's going." He just nodded. "You're the first in a while." That didn't sit right with me. "First what?" He didn't answer, just stared past me like he was listening for something. Then he said, "If you're smart, you'll leave before it gets here." A cold feeling crawled up my spine. Before what gets here? The door chime rang behind me. I turned. Nobody there. But the trucks outside, they weren't in the same spots. I stepped to the window, swore my own truck had moved a few feet, like it had inched closer to the building. I checked the parking lot again. The rigs were definitely shifting, inching forward, their cabs angled toward the diner like they were watching. "Who's out there?" I asked. Cliff didn't look at me. "Not who? What?" Then the lights cut out. The neon sign outside flickered wildly, casting long, warped shadows across the room. And I swear, the trucks outside weren't just closer. They were changing. Metal groaned, windshields darkened like something inside was shifting beneath the glass. Then the doors of one rig swung open, but no one got out. Instead, something long and thin unfolded from the cab, its joints cracking as it crawled onto the pavement. I backed away, heart hammering. "What the hell is that?" Cliff whispered. "They take the drivers. They make them part of it." The thing from the truck turned toward the diner, its face hidden in the shadows. But I saw its hands, long fingers twisted like rusted wrenches, reaching toward the glass. I bolted for the exit. Cliff grabbed my arm. "Don't go to your truck. If you get in, you won't get out." But I didn't listen. I ran, jumped into my cab, and slammed the door. My hands shook as I jammed the keys into the ignition. The dashboard lights flickered. My reflection in the mirror,